Good morning, Benjamin.
How are you doing?
Good. Hi, everybody else. Welcome to the B Squared Natural Capital podcast, where we talk about different forms of natural capital around the mining industry and how they can be optimized, trying to make a better industry and utilize our resources better. Today,
Uh,
oh, we're talking over the top of each other. Dave will be mad at us. But since we do that all the time in real life, we'll just continue on. So today we're going to talk about a little bit about human capital. Uh, people are kind of core to our industry. And the interesting thing is, it's been an ongoing problem ever since I first joined, back when I was a young little undergraduate engineer studying away at mineral processing. It was always a massive issue for the industry to talk about. How do we attract people to our industry? And how do we get the best and brightest to come in and hopefully work on a lot of our problems and come up with really cool solutions to a lot of our problems?
I don't think it's so much a problem of how do we attract people. That's part of the problem, but how do we actually empower them? I think attracting
Okay.
is one problem. Everyone talks about attracting. The number of
Yep.
people who show up in our industry and spend 5 years and then leave. They find something else to do. They find some other place to go. They find somewhere to be. It's not so much attracting, it's how do you actually empower? How do you change how you're making decisions? And in the age of artificial intelligence, this becomes really tricky.
So you're arguing, Benjamin, that for our industry, attracting people isn't our biggest challenge, it's retaining people.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about that then. Let's talk about how you retain talent. And I think you hit on a very key word there, empowering. So to set the scene, tell me what you see when you go to a mine site. Let's talk about mine sites rather than just mining companies in general.
So I see fear. I see we basically equip people to be overloaded with a whole bunch of short term decisions. By 10 a.m. on a Monday morning, people's phones are buzzing from this alert and this issue and that issue and this deliverable and that deliverable. And I see very little time to actually do any long term planning. Cognitive environment where you can actually make long term improvements, where you can actually make changes and think things through and improve stuff because people are just stuck in firefighting in our industry.
Are you saying, as part of this, that upper level managers are micromanaging and not allowing others to do their bit?
I think we're letting everything micromanage our industry. We have all of the issues of upper level managers. We have every possible alert turned on from every possible subsystem. And I get they're all urgent, they're all necessary, they all make sense. And then we're telling people go out and make a whole bunch of really big decisions where your time to make a decision, your time to grow, your time to change things, you have from 10:30 to 11:15, assuming nothing goes wrong, to plan for the $20 million capital spend for a project. And you wonder why things don't work.
Yeah. No, that's an interesting perspective. And I can't say I don't agree with you. So what you're saying, we're getting out there, we're running our business, we're in a rush. We're in a rush to make these quick decisions. So it almost comes back in some ways to the 90-day cycle we like to talk about a lot. And the fact that a lot of our mining businesses are measured by the next quarterly report, as opposed to a lot of the decisions we're faced with making have implications that might be 10, 20, 30, 1,000 years long,
I
and we're
think
not getting due time.
I think 90 days is a blessedly long period of time for most operations. I think
Okay.
people are judged on daily and weekly production reports. I think people are judged on. I think we've taken that 90 days and chopped it up into 180 or 240 subcycles. And we force people to manage all these subcycles and all of this information, all of these spreadsheets, and 27 Excel spreadsheets tied together to understand what exactly you're doing about this, that, and everything else. And all of these models and all of these reports and health and safety and environmental controls and everything. And we've stressed people to the point where they cannot actually think. We've basically taken high functioning people and put them into frameworks where they make really dumb decisions, not because they're not competent, but because we've really undervalued real human capital.
And you're arguing by doing this process, it is resulting in our high in turnover in the industry.
Yeah, you burn people up.
They go find greener pastures that maybe don't work in such a panicked mode.
Look, last week you had a BA airplane ticket that went wrong. Remember that?
Yes.
You got stressed for about an hour.
Yes.
How many days did it take you to deactivate from that stress?
It took me the best part of that day.
I would argue you were still stressed about it 72 hours later.
No, no, I was good about it 72 hours
You
later.
were ranting hardcore about it 72 hours later as it was still a current issue.
Mm, okay.
So let's say that
I don't
theoretically,
think I was, but anyway.
let's say that your worth to your team $10,000 a day.
Yep.
You had one systems interruption in your life. At
Yep.
worst case, you could have solved for $1,000 cash that moment, $2,000 cash that moment.
Yep.
Okay,
Closer to 2000.
fine. $2,000 would have solved the problem, which you probably could have expensed. So it wasn't even really your money.
No, absolutely. And I was going to go there.
Yeah. So suddenly you've got a $2,000 problem that cost you easily $20,000 of productivity because you got stressed.
I get where you're going. Yes.
So you're taking your people in a mindset, whether the metallurgist, the planner, the environmental people, the HR person, the this, the that, the truck driver, whoever. Okay. Even one truck driver operating in a cognitively less stressed environment. I mean, and they've done the studies. You put people under stress, IQ drops 20 points.
Yep.
Okay. You got a
Totally
truck
agree.
driver, you got a truck driver behind a $3.5 million truck that costs roughly $1,000 an hour to operate and generates $5,000 an hour in profit. You put that person under stress because the changeover was not run correctly, or because the ship supervisor was a jerk about the coffee machine. How
Yep.
much damage does that coffee machine cost you?
Yep.
How much
Point
how much
taken.
damage can one truck driver do if they don't properly line up for a load or an unload, or miss the crusher slightly?
Yeah.
So we are cognitively working in a high activation environment where we don't need to. A lot of the times we're being activated because of things that we don't actually need to be activated for. Because we're not valuing the humans. We're valuing our ability to say, if we're activated, we're going to make better decisions. And by the way, I'm as guilty as this as anyone. One of the things that I am learning, and this has been a big shift for me, is that everything that I do that is routine has to have, if I'm not going to do it, meaning if it's not going to be done by me, it has to have an SOP. It has to have some sort of operating procedure around doing it so that we minimize the stress. And I think one of the things we're really bad is we're really bad at writing user manuals for individuals. One of my favorite people in the world teaches people how to write personal user manuals. What activates you? What are your issues? What triggers? For example, I would argue 30% of all engineers in our industry have PDA, psychological demand avoidance. I'd
Amen to
argue,
that.
yeah, I'd argue it's probably closer to 50%. What triggers that PDA? How can we minimize it? Because once you trigger someone's PDA, they're not going to make a good decision for 3 days. That's expensive.
So you're saying part of the solution to helping people free up their time on site is actually having a good solid set of SOPs that they follow that they can refer to so they don't have to think through the dumb stuff.
Yeah, because I think the dumb stuff was killing us. When I look at our industry, people are not taking the time on how to justify a $70 million capital decision. They're focused on the dumb stuff because that pump just still isn't working. It's been 4 months later.
Yeah. Whereas taking the whole pump out and changing it around is probably going to cost you less than 100 grand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many months do you want someone worrying about something that's less than $100,000? Where's the time value?
Okay.
So
So, oh, sorry, finish your point.
no, I was going to talk about solutions, but you
Okay.
probably
Well, I'm going to challenge your thesis a bit further. Giving people standard operating precision procedures, putting them in boxes and making sure they follow those, that's not going to disempower them further.
no, because you do two things. You separate alpha decisions from beta decisions.
Okay.
How the coffee pot is set up is a beta decision. Once you've optimized it once, the odds of you maximizing and optimizing it another time is not particularly high. I would argue that if I was trying to maintain health and safety on a mine site, if I sent out a quarterly coffee brand survey where people got to pick the beans they wanted at $10 a pound or $7 a pound, and everyone got to vote on which coffee they got every 90 days, you would optimize the coffee decision relatively quickly, deliver a huge return on human capital for almost zero cost. Because if every 90 days the coffee pot got to change and everyone got to vote on how it changed, people would feel they had ownership. I'm not saying solve it by having someone sit there and worry and build a standard operating procedure that will only drink Folgers for the next 23 years of his mine site. I'm saying take these standard decisions that are beta, create structures around them so that people can deliver value out of them, optimize them so they operate on a regular basis and are reviewed on a regular basis, and then roll it out.
Okay. So you're giving people a bit of empowerment in that, but that's a relatively minor thing.
But you can roll that to a much bigger thing.
Okay.
So let's theoretically say that we are in a situation where we're going to focus on optimizing natural capital. Let's
Yep.
just go back to our core structure. I am
Yep.
building a standard operating procedure of every time I go on a mine site. I'm
Yes.
figuring out what are the 6 questions I need to get out in the first 2 hours to anchor every other decision.
Yep.
So, like, remember that site where we forgot to discuss energy? Because
Yes.
everything else got so busy so quickly. We
Yeah.
were Water was amazing, and ore was amazing, and tailings, we spent 2 days on tailings. We never once understood their local energy contract because we were so busy on everything else, the energy never came to the forefront.
That's fair.
So I think what you need to do is you need to figure out how you're going to build setting up procedures that are Toyota structured, not Western structured. And that means every time they're used, they're updated. Every time they're used, they're changed. The final step of using an SOP in a Toyota style production system is the person who uses the SOP has to change at least one thing. So
Yeah.
you're empowering, this is a good SOP, but here's something that's wrong with it. Here's what we can make it better. So there's continuous improvement around these sorts of processes.
And everyone's empowered to be part of that continuous improvement.
Anyone who uses an SOP has to be allowed to change the SOP.
Mm. It certainly makes a mind shift change.
Yeah. So a lot of what I'm seeing, a lot of what I'm focused on is how do you bring in Japanese management style into the mining industry? How do you go away from General Motors 1984 structuring? Because we as an industry feel like General Motors 1984. I don't know if you
Yep.
remember that documentary about GM that I grew up with back. I forget the big pro-democratic party documentary maker. He wrote one about GM, and in it, some employee was killing rabbits because they lost their job or something. I remember this documentary from when I was probably 10, 8 to 10. It was
Okay.
very, very interesting. It was about the fall of the US auto workers. And we're in an industry where because we have so much wealth, so much raw natural capital, so much raw everything else, that we're really treating humans like they are not necessarily a core part of the value creation. And on a site, we have to change that. We have to change how we deal and interact with humans.
So once again, you're arguing SOPs for the basic jobs
Absolutely.
to free up people's time and
Mhm.
also empowering people to make changes to those SOPs.
Yep. And I'm arguing to go through and figure out who are the people you can't afford to have stressed. What is their attach a value to them?
Mm,
Okay. I would argue a metallurgist that is doing their job well is worth $10,000 a day to the company. Do you
mm.
want that metallurgist deciding what the lunch order is? What are the things you can remove to fundamentally that you shift from that perspective? What can you sell of their time? The book Buy Back Your Time is really good at this. They have a ratio, which I really love. It's absolutely brilliant on this stuff. Here's the book, Buy Back Your Time. Um,
Ooh, looks
yes,
like you're organized today.
I am organized. And their ratio is take anyone's value, figure out what the value of a person is to you, divide by 4. And if any task someone else can do for 1/4 the cost of them doing it, get rid of that task off their plate.
Okay.
So let's say I'm a $3,000 a day cost center.
Yep.
That's what I cost. Do you want me organizing Airbnbs, which I'm really crap at?
No.
Because by the time I'm done organizing the Airbnb, I have spent more on my time to organize the Airbnb than the price of the Airbnb.
Yes. But I'd argue you're also very particular about what you like in
Yes,
accommodation. So there is some value to your mindset being allowed to do that.
yes, there's absolutely there's value in me organizing my chocolate bars. I care about dark chocolate. So if someone said they're going to supply me with chocolate, and I said I want it to be 72%, and they gave me that horrible Brussels chocolate, the Belgium chocolate that I really don't like, but I'll eat if I'm desperate. I'm going to be frustrated versus if I get the exact right chocolate bar. Because let's face it, like we just spent a bunch of time in Finland and we're spending even more time in Finland. And I love Finnish chocolate for about 2 pieces. But the Finns don't make dark chocolate. And by the way, there's nothing more fun than giving a Finnish engineer dark chocolate and seeing what they do because they've never had real chocolate.
As opposed to, I think our next trip is to South America,
Yep.
which it's really normal to get really high grade dark chocolate.
Yes. And I'll fly back from South America with 25 bars
I
because
hope
it's
you're
just,
declaring that.
oh, absolutely. It's under $800. I don't have to. Um, Coming back at that, and I'm off flight crew, which was $200.
Yeah.
Um, Coming back to that conversation, my point to you, Ben, is you have a value and a cost to what you're doing. Okay,
Yes.
your value is X dollars. Your
Yep.
cost Y dollars. We have to come through and solve these problems. We have to buy back people's time. We have to figure out how we're going to make it so that people want to stay in the industry. Because if
Yep.
you lose a really good person, that is really expensive.
Yeah.
And what we have is we have an industry where the good people go do something else.
Yep.
Remember that really brilliant guy we had? We trained him. We spent a year with him, and he went off to Nestle to manage their water.
Yes. He left the mining industry. Yeah, to go work in an adjacent industry just because he
Yeah,
got fed up with the mining industry.
and he was brilliant,
Yes.
like beyond brilliant. Us losing him was far more costful than we needed to be. So I think we really need to focus on how we're going to optimize this, and I think we have to respect the fact that not everyone is alpha. Just because we're trying to focus things does not mean everyone gets to be focused. You got to figure out, does this person fundamentally bottleneck you? So a metallurgist, you have to figure out how to optimize the value of. Whether or not you optimize the truck driver or optimize the trucks, I don't know. It depends on which one's the bottleneck there. The number of
Yeah.
operations that optimize the truck, because the truck's $3.5 million and the driver's only $50,000 a year or $100,000 a year, sometimes it might make more sense to optimize the truck.
No, and look, I some of this absolutely resonates with me as a young metallurgist, um, even relatively senior on site. So much of the day, 1 or 2 hours at the start of the day when people are generally more productive, was always taken up with meta counting, chasing down data, playing with the spreadsheets, handling queries from the finance department or head office or wherever about the accounting. And ideally, you want that person on site figuring out new ways to make money or save money.
Yeah. So you've basically taken all of their alpha, put them onto
Yep.
beta tasks. How much better would a site be if you were not allowed to do any of the meta counting or other work except from 2 to 5 p.m.?
Yeah, probably a lot better. People would probably be a lot happier. They'd get to go do stuff that's meaningful and maybe make a difference.
And then in the afternoon, when their brain is more turned off, they can do the stuff that's routine.
Mm.
We prioritize the meta counting because that's what the CFO really wants to see the report by 10 a.m. on Monday morning.
Yeah.
Well, the CFO, if he saw it on 10 a.m. on Tuesday morning, would probably make no different decisions. Yet I would
No,
argue,
exactly. It's
right?
it's it's an interesting point.
So there's lots of human capital optimization that can be done around this.
Mm,
But the
mm.
key is to figure out what is the value of what you're doing. What is the value of the optimization? What is the cost of the optimization? And how well can you make these changes? And I'm not saying we need to make it perfect. Does that make sense? I'm saying
No,
we need to focus on it.
yeah, yeah. Take the dumb stuff out of it, push it down, empower people at lower levels perhaps to make those decisions and get that done, and free up your thinking capacity on sites to actually sit back and think and figure out what it is that's going to move the needle for the operation. Makes sense.
And cheap. Let's be clear. None of the changes we've talked about today should cost any operation more than 1% of human capital budget. I would argue
Well,
that
I don't even think that. You start thinking about it, it's not adding people necessarily, it's just refocusing them initially. Yeah, sure, you might find out you have to add people after that, but you're probably adding people that are at the cheaper end of the human resources scale than the more expensive, just to get this stuff done.
and I love, by the way, using AI for this. So one of the things I like to do is I like to take any SOP, I like to hand it to an AI like ChatGPT, the paid
Yep.
version, and then I like to ask them, what am I missing?
Yeah, there you go.
And AI is going to tell me, by the way,
Bless you.
I know. It's one of those funny years.
And for the record, AI doesn't sneeze like that. That is not what it's going to tell Benjamin.
No. But AI is going to tell me where I made my mistakes. If I use AI, it's going to tell me where am I missing the balls. What decisions am I not making well around an SOP? And
Well, it's
if
a
I
nice,
what?
it's a nice quick first pass, because traditionally what we'd do, we'd get that, we'd send it out to people and say, "What do you think?" And things would come back in dribs and drabs. But the nice thing about AI is it's there 24/7. So if you come up with your SOP in the middle of the night, you can throw it through and probably get a pretty reasonable quick answer.
And I want to be clear. I am not the king of SOPs or the queen of SOPs, as some would say. I am not the person who standardizes. I am the person who comes in and reinvents everything all the time. But one of the things that I'm noticing is, oh yeah, Ben shaking his head. He's got trauma from this.
Yes.
One of the things I'm noticing is that at some point you reach a scale or a structure where you actually have to start going away from chaos agents. There's a certain amount of chaos agents you need in human capital, like me, but you don't need me there all the time. So, like, I think my maximum time on a mine site is 18 hours once a month. Three,
Yep.
5 hour days. More than that, and I cause trouble. And I love the other consultants who come in and work 12-hour days for 3 months, where they're on site and they're tied into everything and they're doing this and they're doing that and they're very serious about it. And I love the suits. Like, there's nothing better than a suit in a corporate cafeteria to make you feel loved. That's how you know the person really cares, because they're dressing for the occasion. Sorry, Ben is just smiling. But
Benjamin's going on a rant.
I am, well, but like, I know my own. I wrote myself a user manual years ago.
Yep. I remember this. You can find it on LinkedIn. It's a fair while ago, but it was there.
Yeah, I'm even updating it right now. But my point is, everyone needs to figure out how they're going to maximize their value, their KPIs, their perspectives. And this is an individual project as well. I mean, write a user manual, read Dan Martell's book, Buy Back Your Time. Figure out, how are you going to interact? How are you going to maximize your value? And figure out, how are you going to turn off the things that are nudgy and not actually adding to your stress return.
And not adding value necessarily to anyone.
Well, most of these things don't add value to people. Cool.
Great.
So what are we talking about next, Ben? What do you want to talk about next?
I'm not sure. That's a really good question, where we go next. Perhaps we have a bit of a chat around energy. I don't think we've dug really deeply into energy, but there's a lot happening in the energy world with battery improvements and solar improvements coming out in China. And I think it'll make for an interesting discussion.
Do you want to talk about batteries versus crushers? Would that be fun?
We could talk about how we could utilize existing mineral processing technology, potentially coupling it a bit differently with renewable energy, and seeing what we could do now with what we have. Ideally, in the future, batteries are going to be so cheap and be able to store so much power, it won't be an issue. But let's talk about the now and throw some ideas out there. I think that'd be a lot of fun, Benjamin.
Do you want to look at, so let's talk about this. Let's work this out. Let's optimize our natural capital on screen. Do you want to focus on crushers versus batteries, or do you want to focus on concentrate filter presses versus batteries? Which of those two interests you more?
I think crushers are more exciting.
Okay.
Maybe we'll delve a bit into both. They've both got similar issues. I think they both have similar opportunities. Yeah. But let's save that for next time and have the debate.
Cool.
Excellent.
Well, see
We
you in a
hope
couple
you've
weeks.
enjoyed this episode. We hope it gave you some ideas. Please give us some feedback. Reach out to us via LinkedIn or other means. We'd love to hear what you think about what we talked about, if this would work for you on a mine site, or if you've seen something similar. Yeah, we look forward to it. And if there's a topic you want us to discuss around natural capital, please give us a suggestion. We're happy to do that.
And if you have friends who you think this is useful for, please forward it to them. Please share it. We like to help people. The point of this is not necessarily for us to sell more. The point of this is to actually help people make better decisions. And I think we're approaching this from a slightly different position than other people. I think it's worth having the conversation. On that note, we'll see you in a couple
See
weeks.
you next time.
Bye.